The ecstasy and agony of the Road to Rio major qualifiers are what we are going to talk to you about today, and where better to do it than from the location of the European RMRs here in Malta. My name is k0nfig, this is HLTV Peek, let's bring you up to date. By far, the biggest stories coming out of the European RMRs were the shock eliminations of G2 and Astralis, meaning for both organisations that they will be missing their first majors in their organisations' histories. Astralis at least had a reasonable excuse, with k0nfig forced out of the squad through injury, meaning the Danes had to use Mistar of their academy squad. The late change showed as the Danes thoroughly underwhelmed here in Malta, with Astralis grabbing a single map victory and suffering 4 map defeats, including a 16-3 spanking by Bad News Eagles. Red and white Danish Dynamite were a dud on this occasion. G2 were far and away the biggest disappointments, however, with their excellent run at Pro League seemingly counting for nothing as they failed to build on a stonking 16-0 victory over Ecstatic in their opening game, and they fell to the hands of Cloud9, OneWin and Gamer Legion to see their major dreams crushed. Understandably, the squad were pretty emo in the tweets after their elimination, with both Hunter and Extaz calling it the worst feeling of their careers, with Hooksy apologising for his performance, and with Nico saying he had never felt in this much pain and this empty. The open major circuit is equal parts brutal and beautiful. On a more positive note, there were plenty of surprise runs from the underdogs, with Gamer Legion being one of them. They ruthlessly eliminated G2 on their way to qualification, with Acor in particular redeeming himself a little while after his woeful stint on Mouse. Sprout, a brand new roster featuring ex-Heroic Man Refresh at the helm, also produced a confident display to head to Rio as legends, and the hypest team on the planet, Bad News Eagles, secured back-to-back major appearances. Over in the Americas, it was largely business as usual, with most of the favourites making it through. One surprise was that Furia did not grab the legend spot on offer, as they have done the previous few major cycles. Instead, that honour went to Liquid, who secured the berth with a 2-0 victory over Evil Geniuses that closely fought series, going to overtime in both maps. It was 9Z, a squad featuring a wide range of South American representation, including Uruguayans and Chileans, who were the biggest surprise package of the Americas section. The squad took down Brazilian favourites OO Nation and Imperial in close overtime victories, suffered a loss at the hands of EG, before comfortably sweeping aside ATK to secure their qualification. The most notable team to miss out were almost certainly Complexity, with their recent rise to number 17 in the world seemingly counting for nothing in their qualification series against the Brazilian legends of Imperial. It really would not have felt right for the first Brazilian major to be missing Professor Fallen and his Imperial troops, and they duly delivered in the series against Complexity, where they secured the final spot at the Rio major that the Americas RMR had to offer in overtime on the final map. The final RMR that we have to talk to you about is the Asia RMR, and here it was 2 teams that made their way to a spot in Rio. IHC, who famously attended the PGL Major Antwerp as the first ever Mongolian squad to do so, confidently secured their berth without dropping a single map, defeating Zhizhehao International and Greyhound to secure their spot in Rio. Greyhound were the second team to punch their ticket to Brazil in Asia, defeating Zhizhehao International 2-0 in a qualification series to do so. Yeah, the boys! If I had beer, I would definitely do a shoey. If you want to catch up with all of the intense action that went down in these RMRs, head over to HLTV.org, where we have tons of pictures and interviews straight from the events, so you can really get immersed in the vibes. You can also catch up with any of the action that you might have missed. We also have a couple of pieces of news to bring you, and the first is that Major will be departing Eternal Fire, and with that, 19-year-old xFloud will return to the lineup after the team failed their attempt to qualify for the IEM Rio Major. The move has left the squad without a natural in-game leader, and the team confirmed to HLTV that Emor will be undertaking that duty. Major pulled an absolute esports classic by publishing a tweet longer about the situation, where he stated that for them, he was not enough and he was the problem, whereas in his eyes, it was completely different. Considering that the team reached their HLTV ranking peak, qualified for both Blast Premier and ESL Challenger Rotterdam, and played a great season of ESL Pro League during his tenure, maybe he has a point. Major also confirmed in his tweet-longer that he is looking for a new team and he does intend to continue competing. Elsewhere, TSM, the multi-gaming organization that left the scene back in 2017, announced that they will be making a return to CSGO in 2023. The American-based org will be looking to pick up a European team. However, they said they are not intending to go out and buy a top 5 team, and instead will be looking to build a project from the ground up. TSM bagged themselves their first CSGO lineup back in 2015, and it was a Danish lineup that featured Device, Dupree, Zipnix, and k0nfig, with the team going on to win multiple big events in that year and reaching the #1 HLTV ranking. With TSM's failure to get a spot in Riot's Valorant franchising program, it is likely that this move is intended to maintain their visibility in the FPS esports niche. In what is arguably the most shocking news to come out this week, k0nfig has left Astralis by mutual consent after getting into a fight in Malta. Yes, you heard that right. Astralis initially announced the departure of k0nfig after failing to qualify for the major through the European RMR, where they were forced to play without the Dane due to a complicated ankle fracture that he had suffered. The circumstances of the injury were subject to several reports suggesting that k0nfig had sustained the injury as a result of an altercation in a bar in Malta after Astralis' ESL Pro League campaign. Today, k0nfig finally spoke out on the incident via, you guessed it, tweet-longer. He said that the conflict began with the nightclub promoter getting aggressive, which included the promoter spitting in k0nfig's face. Later on in the night, this led to a fight in which k0nfig had his leg broken. He also shared that he had undergone 2 surgeries in order to address the complicated ankle fracture that he had suffered. He also stated, and I quote, "The entire time I was hospitalized, thoughts has been in my mind. Is this the time to end my career? Fuck no, I'm not going anywhere." The 25-year-old Dane also emphasized the immense stress that the situation has put him under, as well as confirming that the incident is under investigation by the authorities in Malta. He also acknowledged in the post that he felt he could have handled the situation better and that he hoped that people would learn from his mistakes. Remember, if you want to catch up on any action from the RMRs or find out more about anything I have spoken about today, head over to HLTV.org. We've got everything you need to know about Counter-Strike right there. Remember to re-peek in a week for another episode, and until then, see you next time.